Hey Robby, so I think what you're saying in your video is that you have three main questions for me. The first question is, are the revolutions going to work, and if so, will they change for the better? Uh, the second question is, how will they affect the relations with the US, and how will they affect the world economy? So basically, with regards to will the revolutions work, right now we've already seen that the Egyptian revolution has worked. President Mubarak is out, and the military is trying to instate a democratic regime. As to whether they will have a positive change, I doubt it. Simply because in that area they are used to, or at least in Egypt, they are used to having an autocratic government. And so maybe there will be more democratic things instated, but the actual government itself will be able to get away with having a more autocratic style of government, even though it may be a democracy. I really don't think all that much is going to change. Also, let's see, with regards to your second question, you say, how will the revolutions affect the U.S.? There's been some history of the U.S. supporting dictatorships in a way, or promoting them. It's more of a smart political move in a way, because it's easier to keep control of one person than it is to control an entire nation. But that's, sort of an anti-US propaganda, which really is not true. The US isn't like, yay, dictatorship. It's more like, hey, we like democracy, but this guy is really helping us out. The US actually supports democracy a lot more than it supports any sort of dictatorship, at least in its current policy. Considering that there are only about a third of the world's government are democratic, the US supports them a lot more out of proportion than it supports any other government. Another effect of the Egyptian revolution's success is that if you have, like all the other dictators in the area are doing preemptive measures so that they can keep themselves in power, so they're instating democratic style government, or at least reform, in order to keep themselves in power as sort of a preemptive thing to continue going. And then with regards to your third question, you say, how will these revolutions affect the world economy? I think because this was an autocratic, Egypt's was an autocratic government, it sort of compartmentalized where it sent its oil, or, well, mainly oil, because that's their cash crop. They would compartmentalize it so that it would go to specifically this nation, or not to this nation, or whatever. Whereas if a more democratic government is instated, you might see more spread of where the stuff goes. Because if you have a person like if you have a business, they're not going to not sell it to somebody simply because they don't like them. They're going to be like, well, I get money out of it, so, why not? It doesn't really matter. The government may try and restrict that, but it's still probably going to go everywhere. But I don't think that because of this economic tension that you're going to get here, I don't think that there will actually be a World War II style breakout of fighting. At least not because of the economy. I don't think there will be a World War III anywhere anytime soon. At least not because of this situation. There is tension, however, between Egypt and Israel. Israel is lobbying for American troops to be drawn out of Egypt and stop supporting them, because they have evidence that Egyptians are allowing smugglers to smuggle in weapons and ordnance into the Gaza Strip area, and they even have evidence that Egyptian military is helping in the smuggling. So they're lobbying for Americans to draw out of Egypt. And Egypt is saying to Israel, keep your nose out of things that you don't understand, or, you guys don't worry about it. You don't really belong in this area. So that's sort of how that's going. So I feel like there's a possibility for conflict there, but I don't think because of the economic tension there will be war. Especially since the U.S. will be one of the main people, or the main groups affected by this economic change, and the U.S. is typically reluctant to join a war. World War II, I guess, would be a good example, because World War II had been going on for a while, and the U.S. was sort of involved economically, but didn't really want to get directly into the fighting right away. I know it's a common misconception, but they mainly didn't really we as Americans didn't mainly get into the war until Pearl Harbor. There was some action before that, but for the most part, that's how it was. So, yeah, I think that's about how I've answered your question, and DFTBA. Alright, so here's the setup that I used. I made a tripod here out of this box that has originally had a Christmas tree in it, and I propped the camera up a tad bit more with this little stick of gum. And then over here I got the chair and this tapestry, which you saw in the background, which is a dragon, which is sort of holding onto a Celtic cross. The Celtic cross symbolizes the bridge between heaven and earth, and the dragon symbolizes the guardian of all knowledge. So the dragon is sort of guarding the knowledge of the bridge to heaven and earth? I don't know. Sounds about right to me. So yeah, DFTBA.